What is the mindset of a protector? One thing alone can make the difference between failure and success: your mindset. This podcast was created for protectors in the fields of law enforcement, security, and executive protection. Tune in every week where we look in the mirror to make real changes and learn how to achieve greatness by tapping into the Sentinel mindset. This episode is brought to you by The Arena. The Arena focuses on helping law enforcement and security professionals achieve their ultimate work experience, curriculum, and fitness goals. Visit thearenatoronto.com.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to be a police officer? Have you ever been on a ride-along? What are the things that are going through a police officer's mind before they start their shift? We're going to be taking you on an amazing journey over this next month on a 4-part series on literally focusing on a constable per series on what their life entails as a police officer. You don't want to miss this. It's going to be lots of fun. Why don't we jump in and drive off? Actually, we won't be doing that. Police will be doing that. I'll be sitting in the passenger. You don't want to miss this on the next episode of the Sentinel Mindset. Hey everyone, we got a really amazing episode for you guys today. We are here today at Halton Police Service 20 Division, and what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be having a ride along with several constables and give you an idea of what the life is as a police officer. We're going to go into their stories, why they came into the service, but more importantly, help you if you're looking at getting into the service, what you need to know. Today we got a very, very special constable, Constable John Bardoon, and he's going to be showing us today as the very first officer where we're going to be heading. So why don't you join me today so we can introduce you to Constable Bardoon. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Amazing, amazing. So we have right now Constable John Bardoon. We're here to go on this ride along right now. Tell me, how does the day start for you? I mean, it's
very early.
Very early.
Coffee. Coffee is the most important part.
Nice.
Normally we come in, we'll get changed up, we'll get all our gear that's been assigned to us, like personally.
Okay.
We'll come upstairs. We have responsibilities in terms of getting the cruiser ready, getting our stuff together, and then we'll have a brief morning meeting with the rest of our platoon, and then we head out from there.
Now, are you guys coming in civilian clothes, or are you coming already in uniform?
Most of us come in already like civilian clothes,
okay,
just ready to change, and
okay,
kind of, we get here 25, 30 minutes early, change
okay,
up, and then come up here for parade and stuff like that.
Okay, nice. So right now we're in front of the equipment dispensary room.
Yep.
What's inside there?
So this has a variety of our pieces of gear. Most important being keys to a car. So come on in.
Right.
All right. So we've got stuff like traffic unit stuff, tasers over here, radios, just your basic. Anything you might need. Extra batteries, bug spray, sunscreen, all the little things you don't think about when you're outside for the day, right? So I'll grab some keys.
All right.
And then we'll get on out of here, okay?
Do it. I'll get the door.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Okay, so this is what we're being assigned today. This lovely SUV.
Yes.
What type of vehicle is this?
So this is, I believe, a Ford Explorer Patrol Edition. So it has some modifications to it by Ford that help us out, and it's been beautifully detailed and
nice.
Written up for us. It's a marked vehicle. Okay. We have unmarked vehicles.
So typically speaking, you start your day, what would be the first thing that you do? Just jump in and drive off?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Some days you wish you could just go, but no. So the first thing we do is it's called a circle check.
Okay.
And that is to make sure that there's no damage to the vehicle, that the what's called the ICCS, the camera system for the vehicle, is working, our audio is working. All the equipment that's been used or not used is in the back. For traffic accidents, we have cones and we have flares and stuff. So you might need to replenish that if the guy coming off shift or the girl coming off shift before you, is late and running late, and we can help them out and replenish for them and get them out of here if their shift's already over and stuff like that. Nice. So it's really a basic status check for the vehicle and for all your stuff. I throw my bag in there, all sorts of stuff.
Okay, good. So I'll let you do your inspection and we'll do a quick catch.
Well, the first thing we inspect is we turn the lights on.
Okay.
So now that the lights are on, I can do a visual inspection and make sure that they're all functioning. Because one of the major things when we do traffic stops and stuff like that is that people need to see us as much as we see other people. So if you have another motorist coming up and for some reason our back lights aren't working, they might not realize that we're stopped, right? One of the other areas we check is the prisoner compartment. So You want to see if there's anything that's been left in there. Sometimes people will drop things depending on who we're bringing in.
Yes.
Could be contraband, it could be a weapon, it could be something like that. So we just do a quick check here. The newer vehicles that Ford's putting out are actually pretty awesome because it's a plastic seat.
Okay, so the first thing on observation, it looks like a leather seat.
It's not.
But it's not a leather seat.
It's plastic.
It's actually and hard plastic.
And hard plastic, yeah. Okay. So that helps because there's no cushion to stick anything in. Right. Nothing sharp can get down in there. If it gets damaged, you can see it. And
if anyone does, like, let's just say vomit or, you know, then it's easy to clean up as well.
It's easy to clean, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Good.
Not a fun part, but it's easy to clean.
Okay.
Much easier than leather.
Okay, nice, nice.
So normally I would just check, make sure there's a camera and audio situated up here in the corner.
Okay.
So that's for their safety as much as it is for ours, right?
Okay.
And then once that's good to go, I'll shut the door. That'll be recorded on my camera system that I've checked that area.
Okay.
And then we check the back. So every cruiser's got a variety of pieces of gear, a lot. Okay. So we've got cones for traffic accidents. We've got TDDs, which are tire deflation devices.
Okay. Okay.
So if someone's trying to run away in a car, we can throw that down on the road.
Right.
Prevents them from injuring another person in the civilian world or hitting another car, stuff like that. We've got stuffed animals for the little kids that it seems that might be a little nervous or scared to see us. We've got standard stuff like snow brushes and life jackets and ropes and a fire extinguisher. Okay. Some of the electronics and stuff are back here, but we usually don't mess with that. Okay. I usually check to make sure the cover's shut. Yeah. And then we go from there.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, are we ready to jump in?
Let's jump in.
All right, awesome.
Come on over.
Cool, let's do it. All right. We are all set. Okay. Safety first, I guess, right?
Safety first.
Okay, so before we take off, John, now we did an amazing exterior walk. Mm-hmm. Now to see the interior right now.
Okay.
There's a lot of buttons. There's a lot of like everything. It looks like a cockpit, a mini cockpit.
Yes,
right?
It really is.
So the first thing, the vehicle is framed by this entire monitor.
Yes.
Okay. Do all cruisers have a monitor system?
Yes. Technically, no.
Okay.
Yeah, but yes.
Okay.
Any frontline patrol vehicle that's being used for frontline patrol will have what we call an MWS, a mobile workstation. Yes. Some of our cars, like pay duty cars that are doing community events like that, won't have that. They'll just use their radios.
Okay.
But yeah, if you're out on patrol and you're doing your basic police duties, you'll have this. This is a central brain of.
Okay, so this communicates to everything.
Yes,
so we can keep Wi-Fi built into this.
Yes, okay. and Halton has its own
like secured network.
Secured network, yeah.
Okay.
So it's one of the first in Canada.
Okay.
So I'll show you right now. So as we did our circle check, my lights were on.
Yes.
So this is my sounding board for my lights.
Okay.
That automatically, when I hit the emergency button and say, okay, I'm going lights and sirens,
right.
That automatically triggers our camera system.
Okay.
So our camera system went on, and now that I've turned the camera off and I've turned the lights off, it'll ask me, hey, like, what did you just go to?
Right.
So that we know for training and for court purposes and all sorts of stuff, if it's something that we need to disclose in the legal proceedings, that they can find it.
Okay.
So everything we do is tracked and checked and double checked. So we did a circle check, so that's one of our options. So
everything is continuously being monitored. I mean, like, I do know this just from talking to so many fellow police officers, that you just can't randomly just start checking like plates, for example, without this being recorded. It records every motion that you do, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize that just as much as putting the sirens on or even the door opening, everything is recorded.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's like a living evidence document, obviously.
It really is. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It really is, which is important. I mean, everything that we do is subject to public scrutiny. It's our job. It's our profession. Okay. So it should be. Now there are certain aspects of our job that are allowed to be like redacted.
Okay.
So if it's something that's like a tactic that is a part of the law enforcement procedure that is for us to keep us safe and stuff like that, that's not necessarily disclosable to the public.
Yes.
Victims' names and addresses and phone numbers and stuff like that gets retracted.
Okay.
Stuff like that. But for the most part, if we're out doing our job and we're in the public, in the public, it's for public consumption.
Okay, nice. This is a camera up here?
Yes, so that's our camera. That's our camera system.
Okay.
And this is called ICCS, so internal, the camera system that we use.
Okay.
And it's linked to an audio system that we wear on the road. So we don't have, there's some body cams in use in Halton, in a pilot program to see like the infrastructure and what's needed to get that going in terms of like, you know, the body cams you see from the States and stuff like that. But right now we have the camera systems in the vehicle, and then we have a audio mic, so we can, our dialogue at traffic stops and stuff like that is all recorded.
Okay, anything else in here? I know there's a powerful flat, like a spotlight, I guess, right?
Yep.
So that's, I guess, utilized when you need to like zone in very dark areas, I guess?
Yeah, if we're out somewhere or if we're looking for a house number.
Okay.
They're good on traffic stops because we can illuminate the inside of the car before we approach.
Okay, okay.
You know.
Okay, nice. Okay, well, why don't we and then just start jumping on the road and see where we can go. So for yourself, you woke up this morning ready to start off this shift today. How important is sleep for you? That, like, I mean, can you, like, I know a lot of people juggle a lot of things. How important is having a good night's sleep before you start?
It is very important. Okay. I mean, I think that's one of the things that newer officers struggle with a little bit, and it's something that you have to kind of find a routine and a rhythm for yourself, especially if, you know, depending on your family situation, if you have a partner or if you have kids, stuff like that. And the way that Halton schedule works on the front line is we work 2 days, 2 day shifts, and then 2 night shifts.
Okay.
So there's a flip over that has to occur.
All in the same week?
All in the same week. So we work 4 days and then we have 4 days off. There are a couple different services that do something similar to us.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's not, I personally don't mind it. It's not too bad. You know, you work a couple days can be busy depending. And then you get a brief break. We call it like a swing shift.
Right.
And then you have the next morning off, and then you come in for the evening, first night. Second night's usually a little rough because your body's still adjusting, but then you're in your days off. Yeah. So it does take some time to get used to. I think having a routine at home is important. I think that you have to be flexible with yourself. It's going to take, it's not going to be something that comes right away. It's going to take some time to get used to. But as a new officer, when you come on and you have a coaching period, that's all stuff that your coach helps you through and checks in on you and say, hey, are you sleeping okay? And or if you show up for nights and you look like, oh my God, you look exhausted. Like, okay, is everything, did you take a nap this afternoon before you came in? Stuff like that. Like, I always take a couple hour nap before a night shift just to make sure that get some sort of rest depending on what, the night.
Well, you look, the first thing I noticed about you, John, is that, obviously you seem like you're in shape, okay? Which means you got to take care of yourself. How important is, like, for yourself, like, just health and diet, for example, exercise, that all come into play with this job?
It's one of those situations where I personally enjoyed it outside of this profession, but when you get into this profession, you quickly realize that it could be the difference between going home and not going home. Okay. And that's a serious component of our job. There are safety and health risks to our profession, and making sure that you are physically in the best shape that you can be, and that you're able to respond, whether just in terms of, everyone sees the TV shows and the running and the jumping and the the tussling. But,
that's right.
But it could just be if you have a good cardio base or a good, you're a runner or you like to do rowing or classes or whatever it may be. Right. That might help you keep your heart rate down in a situation where heart rates are up, people are elevated, people are yelling, or there's a situation going on where you don't know what's happening. Having that physical health can help you keep your cool. Okay. And I think people don't think about that as much as they see the outward signs of, I got to be like a big tough guy.
Exactly. Interesting. You've been with Halton for 6 years.
Yep.
Okay. What's one thing that has changed, meaning as in like you look at it differently from day one to now into the 6th year that you can think of? Like something to do with the job itself, right? And how you prepare for it or look for it or like your awareness, anything at all that comes to mind?
That's a good question. Yeah. I think when you So I'll speak for me personally, because I don't know about other people.
Right.
And everyone is different, how they approach the job, what they want out of the job, the skills and strengths they bring to the job.
Right.
They're all varied, which is good.
Yes.
Because our communities are varied.
Right.
But I think I had a focus on the inner workings of a police. Like okay, we do traffic and we investigate violent crimes and we help victims and all that sort of things. But I guess I didn't realize the little tiny nuances that we, especially here in Halton, have that would be available to me if I was interested in them. You know, we have units that are focused on community well-being,
right,
and housing,
right,
and you know, how do we forge partnerships with community groups that have already built trust and establishment with, you know, groups, both majority groups and minority groups.
Okay.
So that when we show up, if we have to show up in an emergency event,
yes,
there's a trust there.
Right.
And that was not in my purview when I first started.
Okay.
Because I think when you first start, you're worried about, I have to know the law.
Right.
I have to know the provincial statutes. I have to know, you know, I want to catch bad guys.
Right.
Which,
right.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, of course.
But then you start to see how a modern police service ingratiates or attempts to ingratiate itself in the community. It's better for us.
Yes.
Because we are able to solve more crimes.
Right.
React in a more appropriate way to certain things.
Right.
Than kind of in the past. I think it's made our job harder.
Yes.
And therefore, if our job is harder than the community, it's potentially not as safe.
Okay, I see. When you mentioned the word trust, which I think is a big part when it comes to policing communities and people feeling that trust. Do you feel at all, specifically pertaining to you, that when you're out and you're trying to serve the community, do you find that that there is this warm embrace from the community, or do you find that it's like almost like a 50-50 divide where people receive you well, oh my God, there's like police in our area, or there's some that just say, I want nothing to do with the service? Like, do you feel the coldness?
At times.
Okay.
Yeah, if we're being honest about that, and that's, I think if I'm to put it as nicely as possible, our society is at a time of influx right now.
Right.
And there are people who have different ideas about how that should be structured, what our role should be, what the role of government should be, what the role of health system should be. You know, it's been a couple of years for people.
No, of course,
you know?
of course.
And so I think that a lot of times that we show up, we are met with gratitude.
Right.
And I'm so glad you're here.
Yes.
You know, and it can depend. It depends on the situation too. If we show up to a motor vehicle collision, people are like, oh, like they just, you can see they kind of relax.
Right.
Like, okay, everything's going to be taken care of.
Right.
Depending on the severity of the accident.
Right.
You know, we can help organize medical aid, or we can just settle everybody down.
Right.
Help people with their documents to exchange information. Yes. You know, we provide kind of a neutral party because we weren't involved in the accident, so we don't have the defensiveness about, I had the green light, no, I was supposed to, you know, all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And then we show up, and there's times when we're not a welcome sight.
Right.
Because it may be a situation where we're going to have to take someone's liberty away, and we're going to have to arrest somebody. And
right.
Everybody that's in that group or incident may be aware of that.
Right. It's something about, like, you know, it's funny because you almost have to, like, sometimes overcompensate like a part of or character of you as an individual, meaning maybe you have to show a little bit more empathy or kindness because you're reading the situation wrong. I'm here to, you know, for a purpose. I'm here to do a job. I don't know you as an individual. I'm here to do a job. And I think those can be sometimes barriers, right? Because as humans, you know, we have an emotional scale up and down, and you're trying to read a situation, and you also have to be also very situationally aware of your surroundings walking into it. Let's talk a little bit about that. So for yourself, you know, you're a family man. You know, you're thinking about one thing. Let me go out there, do my job, be effective, but come back home in one safe piece, right?
Yes.
The job of policing, you know, for most people's days, they go to work, they come back. It's a very simple, you know, orchestrated life. But here, every single shift is going to be different.
Yes.
Right? So for yourself, what's going through your mind? Are you thinking like at any time anything can happen, I have to be ready to respond? Like, could you be like laxed almost and be like, oh, it's just a quiet day today, nothing's really going to happen?
I don't think, so the last point you said was the most critical part.
Yeah.
I don't think anything is going to happen.
Right.
That's where I think you could run into trouble.
Okay.
So I'm not personally, and I think we work really hard as a platoon and as a service and as a profession. You can't drive around white knuckling all the time, like,
right.
oh my God, it's like this, something's going to happen.
Right.
Because you'll redline yourself right out of the gate.
That's right.
That's
you know,
right. You can't walk around like that. It's
that's
not
right.
healthy.
Yeah.
And also it prevents you from responding in a calm manner.
Right.
But I do believe it's our responsibility to visualize and prepare mentally for situations that we're going to face. And those situations are usually an emergency nature.
Okay.
Right? Whereas as a civilian, and before I was a police officer, I could drive around and completely oblivious to some of the darker things that happen in the world.
Right.
But that's not my job anymore. My job now is to be able, if those things happen, to respond and be the person that other people can depend on.
Okay.
We can't show up and also be a soup sandwich.
Right, right,
you know?
right.
We have to be the person that says, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Like, you're safe. We're going to get through this.
Right.
Or I need you to go here and do this and that and kind of take control of the situation.
Nice.
And so I think that people need to be mentally prepared for those different situations, or at least visualize themselves in those situations as officers.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that we can't, have a laugh with our coworkers or take a lunch break
of course.
Or de-stress or talk about the game or whatever is going on. We, at the end of the day, are also just human beings trying to do our best.
100%.
But we have a little bit more responsibility, and I think it's important that we, engage visually and mentally in those situations. Say, okay, if, so my zone is the East Zone right now. We move around a little bit, but I've been in the East for quite a while of Oakville.
Okay.
I know that I've got a certain number of churches.
Yes.
I know that I have a synagogue.
Yes.
I know that I've got a certain number of schools.
Okay.
That's important for me to know, because if God forbid there was a shooting at a school, I can't be like, oh, I have a school, like that's my. Right. I have to know my zone. I have to know the community that I'm in.
Okay.
So that kind of preparation is very important.
Okay.
But I think that doesn't necessarily mean you have to drive around amped up all the time.
Right.
You can engage with somebody in a conversation at a Tim Hortons or at a stoplight that's very casual. Very nice. They can say, hey, thanks. We get waves sometimes. Yeah. Wave back, say, hey, how you doing?
Okay.
Stuff like that. You can have a normal personality too.
Nice, man. Do you love the job?
I do.
Okay.
I don't know if is it evident?
It is. And I could tell. I could tell. Look, the way you describe, look, at the end of the day, one could say it's for camera, but I can tell that just right away meeting you firsthand. Why did you join the service, man? What was it about you that said, I want to get into policing? Okay, so I have a pretty long-winded story.
Let's hear it, man. I'm not very bereft, in case you haven't noticed.
No, let's hear it.
So I have family. I'm from the States originally. I'm from the U.S.
Oh, really? So you're an American citizen?
I'm an American citizen, yeah.
Amazing. What part of the U.S. are you from?
So my family is from upstate New York.
Okay.
And I went to graduate school in Georgia in the South, and I spent quite a few years there after grad school. So I moved up here from there. Weather's a bit different up here.
Okay.
But I was used to it being from upstate New York. And I have family. I have a strong family connection to law enforcement. Great-grandfather, grandfather, father, cousins.
Oh,
my nephew's a police officer.
Wow. Okay.
In Syracuse. So we kind of had the family vocation.
Yes.
But I was never pushed into it. And in fact, I didn't start that process until I was 35.
Okay.
So I went to school. I got my undergraduate degree. I went to art school. I have a graduate degree in fine arts.
Okay. So you're creative.
Yeah, I was a photographer for years before I became a police officer. And then as I got a little bit older and I kind of looked into what I wanted to do with my life, and serving was a big thing for me. Yeah. I didn't serve in the military. I had quite a few friends that did. Post 9/11, that wasn't for me. I wasn't in that place in my life, so I wanted to do something in terms of service. So when I initially got into photography, I wanted to be a photojournalist because I wanted to, be at the part of the news and travel all over the world and document things that were going on. And then I started thinking, well, why don't I just do that? Why don't I just serve at home?
Okay.
So I had moved up here prior to that, and I started making getting everything together to put a package together and apply up here and be a police officer up here. So
okay, wow.
It's kind of in my DNA, but also it was a conscious choice because my parents never, oh, you have to do this because so and so did it or whatnot.
So having family from the U.S. that are in police and here in Canada, do you see any stark differences between the two? I would just think by some data that I've heard that police in Canada are paid more, it would seem, than in the U.S. But I'm not sure if that is accurate in 2023.
It depends on where in the U.S.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the being from the U.S. and hearing kind of people talk about the U.S. from other areas, they forget or fail to recognize the size and scope of the states.
Right.
Like we have the population of one of our states, California, is bigger than the entire population of Canada.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And that can be good and bad.
Yeah, that's right.
It's harder to get things done from a global or governmental level. But so if you work in a municipality in a certain state, you might make more than we make up here.
Right.
But you also might work in a very, very small town in the middle of central New York.
Right.
And not make nearly as much.
Okay.
Budgets of services and all of that plays a part. Whereas here, at least from my observation in Ontario specifically, there seems to be more of an even playing field in terms of the same level of respect and understanding of what the needs are of the province.
Yes.
And obviously certain services are much larger than others.
Right.
But that kind of level, and another thing that's different here that I think plays a big part is that there's a central suppository for education.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what service you go to in Ontario, you're going to the Ontario Police College.
Okay, that's right.
That's not the case in the States.
Okay, I see.
You might go to a state, academy. You might go to a local academy.
Yeah.
Depending on your state.
Right.
California and New York versus Louisiana or Colorado might be a very different experience in terms of what your academy is.
Okay.
So I think that the benefit of me starting my career up here was that it was very understandable. This is the standard.
Okay.
And we're all getting the same information.
Okay.
So that sets everybody up, I think, for success.
Well, you achieved a huge goal, and that was getting onto a service.
Yes.
Now that you're in the service, do you want to see, where do you project you'd like to see your career go? Do you want to go for like an inspector or a sergeant or even a chief of police?
I don't think I'd like to be chief.
Okay.
That seems like...
So Chief Tanner doesn't have nothing to worry about.
No, no competition for me. I have a lot of respect for the chief. He's a very warm and kind individual.
Yeah, he's amazing.
I always feel like he's approachable.
Right.
And he's many, many levels of rank above me.
Of course.
But he's always open and very friendly with us.
Oh, it's so evident.
Guys, so.
Very, very. He's a great leader for the organization.
He won't be getting any competition.
Yeah. But do you have a goal that you'd like to see yourself hit as a milestone? Is that something that kind of goes to your mind?
The thing that I think is so special about this profession, and it's really a craft.
Okay.
Because I do think you develop it like you would a craft. You don't show up on a job site and learn how to be a finished carpenter in a day.
Right.
You have to work on that craft, and you have to learn from other people who have been doing that craft for a long time.
Right.
Same thing with policing.
Okay.
It's not just to me, it's not just a job.
Right.
I want to go home at the end of the day. I want to clock out and be able to leave some of it like a job, but it's not just a job. And one of the unique things is that there are so many different aspects of this profession that you can do.
Right, there's so many branches.
You can show up and say, oh, you know what, I want to be on our canine unit.
Okay.
And I've loved working dogs, and then you could succeed in that goal, or 2, 3, 4, 5 years into your goal, you could have an experience at a call, see another officer doing a job that you didn't realize even existed, scenes of crime or ident forensics, and be like, oh, no, I can do that.
Right.
And you can.
Okay.
The possibility is there for you to do that.
Okay.
Right? Or you could be, you know, a jack of all trades and say, you know, I love the road. I think a lot of times from a citizen point of view, they just see this, the black and white.
Right.
So when I got into policing, I thought, this is it, man.
Right.
This is the job. You're
right.
You're out. You're driving around in your cruiser. You're responding to, you know, emergencies and other service calls for the community. It's great. You forget about the detectives and the K-9 and the tactical teams and the investigators, or the person that does all of the really important interviews.
Yes.
Right. Who has a background in you know, interviewing skills that you wouldn't even imagine.
Right.
Right. But there's all those abilities to watch other officers, learn from them, and then say, okay, that's something that will definitely work for me.
Okay. No,
You know?
I like that, man.
And it does change too, because so I got hired at 35.
Okay.
I had a.
By the way, I honestly would have not guessed 35. I would have brought you closer to 30.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
The skincare routine's working out well, I guess. Yeah. But I was older.
Yeah.
And I had much younger individuals in my recruit class.
So I want to stop for a second. You said you were older. I want to squash the myth that there's people out there that are above 35 that are applying, and they will hear some comments or references that police services are not looking for older people. Right?
That's not true.
That's not true.
No.
Yeah.
Police services, not being in the recruiting department, but I can say from what I experienced being in the recruiting process and also watching, you know, I'm a coach officer.
Okay.
So I will take new recruits when they come off of OPC.
Yes.
And they have a period of time where they're on the road, kind of on the job training.
Yeah.
And they're a coach officer is responsible for guiding them through
Right.
that.
Right.
So I've seen a lot of that. Police services want people with life experience.
Right.
And they want varied life experience.
Right.
You know, I think the days of, okay, you're 6'5" and 200 pounds and look like you could lift heavy.
Right.
Come on over.
100%.
I think those are kind of over. And
by the way, I would say you're, what, 6'4", 6'5"?
I'm 6'4".
You're 6'4"?
Yeah, 6'4".
Okay.
Maybe it's a bad example because I'm so tall.
No, but still.
But they need officers who are going to be able to build those relationships and that trust, or have intimate knowledge of a group or a community that we might not have organizationally.
Okay.
They need that.
Right.
So they need someone that might be older. You know, when you're
to relate to somebody too.
When you're 23 years old and you're single,
right,
and you got hired by the police department, and you show up at an intimate partner violence incident, you might not know what it's like to be married.
Right, exactly.
You might not know what it's like to have the stress of a newborn baby, and everybody's just upset, and you know there's no criminal offenses occurred, but like there's tempers and people are tired, and you have to learn how to navigate those situations.
Absolutely.
And you lean on the people who are, I get it.
Yeah.
You probably got 2 hours of sleep.
Exactly.
You know, you overheated the milk, and now the babies are more upset.
Yeah.
You have to be able to communicate with people and empathize with people and have a good basis of understanding of what they're going through in those situations where we're not solely there to enforce the criminal code.
Right.
And that takes a varied group of people.
Okay, that's good. And I honestly think you said it perfectly. I think it's a perfect example for someone to understand when we're talking about life experience, we're not just talking about the job, like you must have, for example, this type of job background.
Correct.
To do this.
Yes.
It has to be everything.
Yes.
It's all well-rounded.
Yep. Okay. People who speak multiple languages are always a plus. Okay. I never got that bug. I tried hard for a long time. Could never pick it up.
Right.
There are days when I don't even converse in English that well, you know? But multiple languages, or different religions, or community backgrounds, or travel experience. You know, if someone's from a small town and has always been in a small town, they might not understand as much or a certain situation as differently as someone who's been like, oh, I've lived in 3 different countries. You know, we deal with people who have, I personally was an immigrant to this country. And when I showed up here, my debit card didn't work. Because we had a different banking system. And something so simple. I'm like, man, I have money in the bank. I saved up to come here. I can't buy myself a coffee. I can't figure out how to get a cell phone. All of those little things that if you don't experience them, you might not initially be able to be like, oh, I can help you.
Okay.
And then you're kind of on your heels a little bit.
Okay.
So services need people from a variety of ages and ethnic backgrounds and gender presentations to be like, oh no, I've been here. Or hey, I know this is how they're gonna react positively.
Right, right.
You know, something so small as, hey, we're not gonna take our boots off in this situation because it might be a safety issue, you know? But, hey, but you could, if you offer, say, hey, I'm so sorry, I'm you know, is it okay if I come into your house with my boots on?
Right.
That might make a huge difference to keeping everybody nice and calm.
Which, by the way, like, that in the winter, when it's all snowing outside, right? You have to attend a situation.
Yep.
You're not taking your shoes off.
No, you're not. You're not.
Or putting on bootsies or whatever, yeah?
It might go a long way to say, hey, you know, we can stand right here in the foyer where there's a couple, like, we don't have to, I don't have to truck through your house.
Right, right.
If I don't have to, I'm going to try to make it as peaceful and copacetic a situation as possible.
Exactly.
Now, I might have to say, okay, we got a distress call here. I got to check every room to make sure there's no one in trouble.
Exactly.
That's a different story. But I'll always say, I apologize for my boots or something.
Okay. No, listen, 100%. Look, you know, actually, being an American citizen, like, a lot of people I recognize in the U.S., off topic, they'll walk around their home with their shoes on.
It's the most foreign thing in the world to me to show up. And my wife is Canadian.
Okay.
And she'd be like, take your shoes off. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right.
And when we go home to my house, my mom walks around with her shoes on.
Yeah.
And it drives my wife. Yeah. She's like, I don't understand. I'm like, my parents have like 7 pairs of shoes. That's probably just the indoor shoes.
Right. No, I know for sure.
But you never, like those little things.
Yeah, exactly.
They can change
100%.
the attitude of everyone at a call.
That's it.
And including us.
Yeah.
So
100%. Well, listen, that's interesting, man. You said you're a coaching officer as
Yes.
well. So when you get these new recruits that come in right now, I know they're going through a mix of emotions. They're excited. They want to please, but they're also, I'm assuming, probably very nervous, right?
Yes.
What are some things that you would tell the new recruit, like, you know, some simple things to kind of just ease them into the job?
It's okay to be nervous.
Okay. Okay.
It's totally natural.
Right.
I think a lot of times they want to be what the stereotypical idea of this stoic, you know, police officer who, you know, is a bit robotic and knows all the right answers and you know, is running and jumping and fighting and all those things that may be required, but aren't necessarily the day-to-day. The day-to-day of our profession is talking to people. And so I always try to tell my recruits, you're going to be really nervous the first time you talk to somebody, even if it's just on a traffic stop. Because you're wearing all this stuff, and there's all these, you know, they might have ideas about who you are because of your uniform. And even though they don't want you to assume things about them. Just take a deep breath. And try to talk to them. You have to be cognizant of your own safety and the safety of the public. But your job, I think, when you're starting out, is to kind of develop your spidey sense. You know, okay, this is, I can relax. This is a everyday person. They're driving to work. They might be a little late. They might have rolled through that stop sign. We're not here for a weapons call. This is just a, hey, are you on your way to work? And and a lot of times, people, you know, in those situations, people are like, I'm so sorry, I know. And so then, okay, I tell my recruits, take that opportunity, just have an extra 10-second conversation with them. Okay, everything else going okay? Because it gets you in the habit of talking to someone in a situation that's very calm. Right? And you develop those skills then, so that if it's a not calm situation, you're not stuck and stuttering and not knowing what to do or not knowing how to relate to somebody to try to de-escalate them. So.
Okay, good, man. When you're driving around in your cruiser and on a typical day, during the day, is it just solo?
Yes.
Okay, so when do you have at nighttime 2 people?
No.
So so that kind of is also maybe like a new way of practice police.
Yes.
Back in the days, there used to be 2 at night, for example. But it depends on the service as well.
Depends on the service.
Like Toronto, right? So with Halton, it's one per shift.
Unless you have a recruit officer, so you have a coach and a recruit in training. That would be a 2-person car. We have the cadet program in Halton, which is, I think it's 18 to 23-year-olds, and they work with the service. They're a cadet. They don't have any use of force. or they have minimal use of force.
Okay.
But it's kind of a really good way for them to see on the job, what is this job for me?
Okay.
So they're obviously interested in it because they have to apply for it, they have to interview for it. There's a background check. There's all sorts of, it's kind of a mini constable program, if you will, from my understanding.
Yes.
And then they ride with us on our normal shifts.
Okay.
And they're assigned to kind of a coach officer as well. So that would be a 2-person car. Depending on if there's a assignment from your staff sergeant, hey, we need you to go, Peel Regional Police has arrested someone that we have on a warrant.
Yes.
You need to go pick them up and give them a court date or bring them back to our studio or something. They'll send 2 people in the same car.
Okay.
But as a general patrol, we're out here 1 person to a car.
Okay, nice.
If a call comes in that is of a serious priority, you're never going alone.
Okay.
We always go in pairs or 3 or 4.
Okay, so this has been pretty interesting. I've been observing quite a bit of vehicles looking in. So usually, like right now, I'll be driving, and obviously you only pay attention to the road and stuff, but I'm also paying attention to people around. I'm noticing behaviors, right? So some people are aware fully, and it looks like they're driving on their best behavior.
Yes.
But I also do notice some people that have not caught on, and that they look distracted, meaning that they could be on their phones.
Yep.
How much of that stuff are you seeing on a day-to-day basis?
It's pretty rampant.
Okay.
It's pretty common. I mean, it's hard because we live in a world where everything is instant gratification. If someone needs you for your job, I need you right now.
Right.
Right. So we do see a lot of distracted driving. It is a problem. It is a contributing factor to a lot of collisions.
Okay.
But it's funny. The first thing you said was you're noticing people that notice us.
Yes.
This is like a driving billboard, and we have to tell our recruits, like, you need to be aware that you are always going to be watched. Like I said, anything we're doing in the public is open for public consumption. That when we're driving, you make sure that you're driving in the correct manner. You're doing all the things that you need to do because people see your car and instantaneously are all like, oh, yeah, there's a cop there. What's going on?
That's right.
And so if you're rolling through stop signs, or like, how are you expected to then enforce the Highway Traffic Act in a manner that's not? You have to be on your P's and Q's. You can't be distracted. Right. Like we have a giant computer here.
Yes.
And you need to be able to multitask and say, okay, dispatch is sending me a call right now.
Right.
But you can't let that impact how you're driving because it's a public safety concern, right?
What about like individual officer phone use? Like, would you typically have to turn your phones off? Like, what if someone needs to get a hold of you in an emergency? Is there protocol on phone usage inside a vehicle?
Inside of a vehicle?
Yeah.
So there are some exemptions for officers in the HTA if we are in the doing of our duties. Okay. Which is like one of the things is it allows us to speed to catch someone who's speeding.
Right, exactly.
So there are some allowances for us if we are in the performance of our duties. Yes. And electronic use is one of them. Right. But I caution my recruits especially to be, that doesn't mean you're checking your text messages. Right. It means if your sergeant calls you, and you have to answer, you can answer, try to pull over and finish that conversation. But sometimes we're going to, situations that are more dynamic that you might have to, go on your radio while you're driving and give directions or talk to somebody or say, oh, I'm going to be here in 2 minutes. Right. Wait for me, etc. Right. So you do a lot of multitasking. In terms of personal phones, I have my personal phone on me just in case there's a family emergency or, my kid is sick at school and suddenly I have to enable childcare or something like that. Okay. And we have work phones that we do all of our notes. All of our notes are electronic now. Yes. Which is, I think, hugely beneficial. Okay. It's fantastic. They're available to send to an investigation unit or somewhere else much quicker. Okay. Than scanning and or photocopying. Right. But we have work phones too, so it's a juggle. Okay. It's something you have to be mindful of.
Okay, nice. Now, as I'm sitting in the vehicle, I have this vest on, right? And I've worn a vest before, and I only have some of the items that you're wearing. You have a whole slew of equipment on you. The one thing that I noticed as soon as I sat in the vehicle is that, this is not like a very comfortable, ride. Meaning as like the chair's comfortable, but how I feel kind of like closed in. Yes. Do you get used to that feeling?
So yes and no. the service does a really good job of working with individual officers who, because I'm 6'4", my experience in an SUV is very different than my experience in one of our Tauruses or one of our Chargers.
I can only imagine.
Right? And sometimes the Chargers
and
is the only car
I'm
that's
looking
left.
at that. I'm even looking like the sun's not hitting your eyes because your eyes are almost above the visor.
Yeah. So there might be adjustments that we can have to where we keep things on our belt.
Right.
Where our holster is situated, because that's a big component for people that need to get used to, is because this is a solid piece of plastic with security and built in. Like it can dig into your hip.
Okay.
So adjusting a little higher or a little lower in a safe manner can make a huge difference on how that officer feels, you know, sitting with a seatbelt on and stuff like that. So yeah, there's little adjustments they do.
Okay.
When they measure your vest, I believe it's measured for when you're sitting down, not when you're standing up, because it does sit differently when you're sitting down, so they have to account for that.
Okay, nice.
But yeah, you do eventually get used to it.
Okay. What would you say, John, are one of the most rewarding parts of this career?
I think so there's a difference. When I started, I thought it'd be one thing, and now it's something different.
Okay.
So when I started, I thought it would be the kind of grandiose societal, you know, thank you for your service, you're a police officer.
Yes,
you know, certain jobs have certain prestiges associated with them.
Right.
Firefighters, EMTs, first responders. I thought that's kind of what would stick out to me.
Right.
And as I've gone along and I've had the opportunity to have impacts on specific people, getting a thank you from those specific people has meant much, much more on a day-to-day basis of being super happy and coming into the job and being like, or you come in from the next shift afterwards and your platoon says, oh, you had that call where you really got through to that kid who was having a hard day,
right?
You know, and the way you talked to him was really great. And then you know the parents send an email or something like that, which doesn't happen often,
right?
And I'm not saying it's required,
right?
Because we do what we do because that's what we want to do,
right?
But it is those little moments of, hey, I really appreciate what you did or how you did what you just did.
Yeah,
that really, I think, has a positive effect on me personally, and I know.
Well, it's not only just you. There's facts behind it. We actually had someone on our show. Her name was Anne Birmingham, and she was talking about difficult conversations, but she was also talking about how powerful giving feedback to someone. It could really look, this job is a thankless job, right? But at the end of the day is that, you know, you are putting your life on the line. You are here for the purpose of protection. And it is nice for people to recognize that. So first of all, I want to tell you this, man. Thank you for doing what you're doing, John. Because honestly, I respect the profession tremendously. You know, there's a lot of, well, as you mentioned, there's politics that have really surfaced over the last couple of years where, you know, people have even gone as far as saying things like defund the police. But the reality is, you as a human individual who have the uniform on, who is a family man, who is here to basically live your life, but you're putting your life also on the line, right? And that's the reality. So thank you for doing that, man.
I appreciate you saying that.
You know what I mean? And it's amazing. Like I said, I can see who you are as an individual just from my talking, your energy, and how you are passionate about this job. For yourself, when you go home, and it's very common, my wife is probably sick and tired of me just telling her, hey, do you want to see this? Or do you want me to tell you? It's sometimes I just need that outlet. And but your outlet's going to be very different because you're going to be on the job and you're going to see things that can be very, very tough. How do you process that? What is your outlet so you can kind of just, if you see something very grim or you have to give some very bad news, you know, that's on your mind and you can always relate and connect, man. You know, I have a family, if that was happening to me, how do you process that so you can just, for your own mental health?
Well, I think first off, everyone's is different.
Right.
And everyone should be different. There's no cookie cutter way to deal with some of the things that we see on the job. And every officer kind of has a responsibility to find what works for them, a healthy thing that works for them.
Right.
Mine is, I really enjoy working out. I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Nice.
It's kind of hard to be thinking about other stuff when someone's trying to choke you.
Right.
You know, in a sporting aspect. That's always been very beneficial for my mental health. And there's a camaraderie there that is also very beneficial. I have strong relationships with my NCOs, my staff sergeant, and my sergeants, and I have strong relationships with people that are on my platoon that I can go to and say, hey, you were also on that call, man. That was tough, right? And maybe just acknowledging, yeah, that was a tough one.
Okay.
That can be enough sometimes. And then
talking about it is key.
But talking about it is key, and it doesn't. I try not to talk about it with my wife.
Yes.
Because she's very sensitive and very caring, but it affects citizens differently.
Right.
And one of the things I read, my statistics might be off, is but like the average person has 4 or 5 really critical incidents in their life that are traumatic.
Yes.
The death of a loved one, child gets hurt or has to deal with childhood cancer, something. Only about 4 or 5.
Right.
The average police officer deals with about 80 in their career.
Wow.
So roughly.
Yeah.
It depends on the service and all that sort of stuff, and the geographic and all that sort of stuff. But so we have a lot. It just builds. So you have to do a really good job of kind of releasing that pressure valve. And I would say our service has programs set up and benefits set up so that we are able to speak. We have a wellness unit. They'll reach out to us and say, hey, we read the overnight calls. We saw that you guys had, a sudden death. Are you guys all doing okay? And sometimes it's not super traumatic. It was like, oh, this is an elderly person who had everything arranged. They had a disease that was deemed to be terminal, and we kind of were just there to help administrate and help the family go through all of those steps.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
Right? And then sometimes you're like, this was a super traumatic event, it was unexpected, or there was a car accident or something, and wellness will always reaches out.
Right.
Do you guys need anything? Do you have any supports? We have a psychologist that is associated with and works with the service.
Oh,
sometimes there's debriefs. So if we do a call as a platoon, and it's a call where there's like something traumatic that's happened, we'll take that call and a couple days after, give people some time to process, we'll say, okay, is everybody good, first of all? Yeah. Second of all, what could we have done better?
Right.
What did we do really good that was successful that we should be, proud of?
Right.
And how is everybody feeling after letting this settle for a little bit?
Okay.
That's huge too. But we have a lot of supports that are built in. I think the important part is to, and this is changing in a positive way, is that there's becoming less and less stigma of using those.
Right.
The supports can be there, but if you never reach out and say, hey, I just want to have a 20-minute conversation about how tough that call was.
Yes.
And if you don't use it, then it's a waste. So you have to learn, and I tell all my recruits, like, if you're having a hard day, you can call me.
Yeah.
And if you don't think that I'm the person to call, find someone to call. And if you really need to talk to somebody, call wellness, and they'll hook you up with a professional who can help you navigate this. Because you do see things, even if they're not traumatic. Like I think the first 2 or 3 months, Halton, or Oakville specifically, is having a huge influx of new residents, but that means that there's a lot of older residents who were here previously or helped, original owners type of.
Yes.
They're hitting an age where they may, or their parents may be passing away.
Right.
So my first 3 or 4 months on, looks like we have a collision up here.
Okay.
My first 2 or 3 months on the job, I had to go attend some of those more than I had previously in my previously 35 years of life.
Okay.
I didn't have a huge family where I had to go to a lot of grandparent funerals or anything like that when I was growing up. So it was a big change, and it wasn't necessarily traumatic.
Yeah.
But it was a different experience.
Okay.
And my coach always did a really good job of saying, hey, just because this isn't, traumatic, doesn't mean it's not sad, and doesn't mean it won't not affect you.
Yes.
So I think we try to do a really good job. It's also a responsibility of the officer to say, hey, I would call my buddy up and say, that was tough for me.
No, that's good. That's good. And that's important more than ever before right now. Like, I find the mindset in general for a lot of individuals is not at the strongest point. I mean, our whole entire, world has gone through a traumatic thing with COVID, and it's changed a lot of things. So I'm glad that those resources are available to you guys. Now, you just referenced that we are just, there's an accident that just happened here.
Yes.
Typically speaking, obviously we're doing the ride along today, but typically speaking, is this something that you would just say, hey, let me just go take a look and see what's happening here for assistance? Or do you just kind of, I'm just like, you're doing your thing still?
No, absolutely, I would go to help.
Okay.
Yeah, if I was on a platoon, or even if I was working overtime or something, and I were to come across something, and if there were officers present, I would say, you guys need another traffic person? Do you need another, like, do you need me to take a statement from a driver or something? And they might say, no, we got enough people here, we're good. All right. And I can carry on. If I come across it and I'm the only officer here, then I'm notifying dispatch. And hey, I just came across, there's an accident here at Upper Middle and Trafalgar. Can you, create a call and send me some people to help?
Okay. The amazing police of Halton right in front of us right now. Amazing. You mentioned earlier that you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as a thing on the side. Now, we're very big advocates of that type of martial art. It's really nothing to do with striking. It's all about control and takedowns if needed. Most people don't realize that most incidents or fights end on the ground, right? Yeah. And for someone like yourself, the police don't provide that kind of training. That's something that you do on your own.
Yes.
Right? So I want to just first of all just talk a little bit about that. Like, that's important, I find, because you're adding to your skill on the job where you might need to tap into that.
Yep.
It's something that I know many services, some in the U.S. have it as part of their training. Yeah. We're trying to be an advocate to see if all services can provide this for their people. What are some of your thoughts about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and what you do for your own training and how it helps you?
I think there are aspects. I think where people might get caught up is they'll see the sport of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and say, oh, well, cops should never be on their back on the ground.
Right.
Which is true.
Right.
Right. And we are carrying things that if they were taken from us could make,
oh my goodness,
this is not a sport situation.
Exactly.
So I think sometimes people get caught up and say, oh, I don't know about that. But I think what is important to advertise or to explain to people is that there are principles in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu outside of the sport that were originally intended for self-defense and controlling a bigger, stronger person that are absolutely applicable.
Yes.
And that keep the person that we're trying to control safer than they would be if we were using another use of force option.
That's right. That's right.
It's optically better for everyone. It's physically better for everyone. So I think that there are those aspects of the control, the able to get someone into a disadvantaging position where we can put handcuffs on them and then everything can settle down, are super, super important.
Okay.
I also think that then the reason why I started to do it actually wasn't that reason.
Right.
I started doing it. I had some police officer friends who did it, and they said, I said, oh, I'm kind of interested in this. I said, you really, we go here, you come out, try it for whatever. It's every time I go in, it's an opportunity to make decisions under stress.
Okay.
Right? It's very stressful, even in a safe gym environment, to have somebody on top of you and you feeling like, oh, I can't move right now.
Right.
And why can't I move?
Right.
Like, this is so frustrating. I'm a big 6'4" dude. Why is this 5'4" person just effortlessly holding me down on the ground?
Right.
And then you learn, okay, breathe.
Right.
Let me breathe right now. Let me just get my breath back.
Right.
Okay? Am I in a really bad position? Yes. But am I in a position where I have to tap? No. Okay. How am I going to escape?
Right.
Like, even if I'm working through this
It's almost like chess.
It's like chess.
Yeah.
But it's under stress.
Right.
So now I show up on the job and I have a stressful situation where 3 people are talking over each other and one's yelling at me and everyone's escalated, and I say, okay, what do I got to do?
Yeah.
Breathe.
Right.
Figure out what's going on.
Right. And
start making slow, methodical decisions.
Right.
To get to a successful endpoint.
That's good.
Right? As opposed to just being like, oh, I do it because I can, put a Kimura on somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That is also applicable.
Yes.
But to me, it's getting officers in stressful situations where they can learn to make decisions. I tell all my recruits, hey, it's not required.
Yeah.
But if you have the financial means to go to class once a week, it's super helpful.
Okay.
It's super helpful.
Amazing. That's awesome. This has been fantastic, how we've been just finding a little bit about what you do, expectations. There's a lot of people that have a very deep desire to get onto the police service, a very deep desire. And the goal is that they watch these videos so they can give them a little more understanding so they can know what they're walking into. For the individual that is basically just vaguely saying, like, I want to get on, how could I prepare myself? What do I need to do to get myself ready as a whole? You know, or maybe, how about this one, John? The person who has failed.
Yeah.
The person who has failed because maybe his physical wasn't in order, and maybe he didn't pass something. What would you tell that person if they desperately want it, but the rejection is kind of taking a little toll on them right now?
It takes a toll. Yeah. It took me 6 years to get hired.
Wow.
So if it's something that you really believe that you have a desire to do, and I feel like if you truly have a desire to do this job for the right reasons, then you have a responsibility to do this job. Because there's people who don't. Right. And that's okay too.
Right.
They want to go work in an office, or they want to be a musician, or they want to be a plumber, or they want.
Right.
That's amazing.
Right.
But we need people who want to be here.
Right.
So that we can do our jobs and have a positive impact. So if you have the desire to do it, I think you got to give it everything you have.
And I like that you said that, because I know the process is tedious.
Yes.
And you know, for example, the background alone is very tedious. The reality is that you know, the recruiters want to get it right the first time, that they've done every single thing to know this person truly is what you just said.
Yeah. And I think that people, it takes some time, it takes some maturity, it takes some perspective, but you also, like I applied to not just Halton. Right. I applied to a couple different things that were in the area where I was living.
Right.
And there's some that I didn't even get an interview for.
Right.
Right. I have advanced degrees.
Yes.
I think I got a pretty good head on my shoulders.
Yep.
I've never been in trouble.
Right.
Stuff like that. You have to understand that every service is looking for different things.
Right.
And every service has a different need in its community. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt. Rejection sucks. Like there's no other way to put it. It's tough.
Right.
I don't enjoy it. Like it's tough. It's personally, you feel, oh man, they just don't want me.
Right.
But if you really want to do it, you continue to work on yourself and say, okay, like, and it doesn't have to be, oh, I got to get a job as a security guard now.
Right.
It's okay, how can I be well versed in this area?
Right.
Or what can I do? How can I show excellence in something that I do? Because it's not necessarily just, can you do these cop skills?
Right.
It's can you illustrate that the things that you take seriously, you do your best at.
Right.
Right. Are you going to take the training seriously?
Yeah.
Are you going to show up? Are you going to learn the law to the best of your ability?
Right.
We have to be a jack of all trades. We really do. Can you multitask?
Right.
Can you take constructive criticism? That's a big one.
Right.
Because you're not going to show up on the job and do everything perfect.
Right.
I'm 6 years in. I make mistakes.
Right.
And I have people that say, hey, I've been there before, so I know this was a mistake. Here's how you fix it.
Right.
And you got to say, oh, okay, cool.
Right.
Like I have more to work on.
Right.
You have to have that humility, and it's a drag to go through the process. It's an important process because you do want to have the right people so that we can have good, positive interactions with our communities. But if it's something that you want to do, just stick with it because it's worth it.
Amazing.
It's
advice,
worth it.
Man. Amazing advice. I want to thank you so much for your time today.
No problem.
Absolute pleasure.
I enjoyed it.
Halton should be, if they're not already, massively proud to have someone like yourself representing.
Well, I'm happy to work here.
And I can tell you right now, just I felt like everything you said was very genuine. And continue doing what you're doing, man. You're making an impact on recruits. You're making an impact in the community, and it's only going to make things better.
I appreciate it.
Amazing.
I appreciate it.
All right.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Well, thanks very much, and have a fantastic day, everybody. Take it soon.
Cheers.
All right.
Thank you for joining me in today's podcast. This podcast was created for protectors in the fields of law enforcement, executive protection, security, and anyone looking to level up their mindset. If you are learning from this podcast and you're enjoying it, please subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Sentinel Mindset. That's a zero-cost way to support us. In addition, please subscribe to the podcast both on Spotify and Apple. And on both Spotify and Apple, you can leave us up to a 5-star review. If you have questions for me or comments about the podcast or guests you would like me to consider on the Sentinel Mindset, please post all comments on YouTube. I do read all the comments. Please also check out our sponsors, thearenatoronto.com. The Arena was created to help all those in the fields of law enforcement, security, and all that achieve their fitness goals. I want to thank our producer Matthew Doyle and creative supports Jaslene Singh, who help me with this podcast every week. We value your feedback and are here to support you. Tune into the Sentinel Mindset every week, where we look in the mirror to make real changes and explore what it takes to achieve greatness in your craft.
This podcast is brought to you by Executive Protection Lifestyle Canada. Make sure to drop by next week and don't forget to subscribe.